Hello, greetings to everyone who has joined live and watching later as a recording. I'm Rajesh Kaladindi, dialing in from Seattle. I would like to welcome you on behalf of UXPA International. UXPA International, those who don't know, it's a non-profit organization led by volunteers completely with the goal of enabling the people who want to come into the UX profession or in the UX profession by providing as many as resources possible to grow in their career. So we have lots of resources. Today's webinar is one of them as a free webinar. And this is a member-owned organization. If you're not a member, we definitely would like you to become a member. That becomes actually, beneficial for getting a discounts for in-person conferences like that. I just want to give you a quick view of what are the free resources available apart from webinar for your career growth. We have a UXPA magazine. For the last 25 years, we have been publishing this, and now it is online free magazine. And we also have a UXPA journal, Journal of Usability Studies, or Journal of User Experience. This is the only peer-reviewed journal for UX professionals. That is also free. If you are an academic person, please consider using the existing material or contribute to it, either through the magazine or Journal of Usability Studies. So we will talk more about our upcoming conferences after Ali's presentation before the Q&A. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Ali for this month's webinar. And she's bringing up a timely topic, which is designing the human AI and agentic ecosystems through the UX looking glass. So I'm very curious about what Ali is going to say. Please post all of your questions in the chat window and then we'll get to them whenever Ali is ready. Ali, please take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm going to give you all a brief introduction, and then I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to jump right in. I'm Ali Cuthbertson. I have a decade's experience in multiple disciplines, including biological sciences, chemistry, IT, security, and also, of course, throughout that career, I've been a UX practitioner. It's always been very important to me to have UX as a center, a human-centered design. And I have a beautiful founding of a publishing company, which I'm now being able to broadcast and send multiple periodicals and creative works throughout the world as a way to bring people a better understanding of UX and bring people up to improve themselves in their careers and their lives, however that looks like in people. And what I'd like to do now is go ahead and start to share, and I'm going to jump right in. And yeah, like Rajesh said, please put your comments, questions in the chat, and we'll get to them as we move along. I am excited to be here. I'm very grateful. So with that, we are going to share and just give me a minute to get hopefully there's no glitches. I don't think there will be. I think this is going to be fabulous. So 1 second while I do a little business. Okay. Okay, how does that look, Rajesh and Michelle on the screen? Is that
That looks
sufficient?
perfect. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let me go over here so I can see the chat. 1 second, almost there. Okay, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Now, we all know in the current climate, sometimes I feel like I'm in Wonderland. And my name is Alice. My friends call me Allie. However, that Wonderland metaphor really hit home for me. And for those of you not familiar with Alice in Wonderland, the book by Lewis Carroll, he wrote a sequel called Alice Through the Looking Glass. And when I think about Alice after she wakes up and she heads back from Wonderland, she then encounters a looking glass. And if you notice, she's not seeing her reflection. And what I want to explore with you today is what it means to design human AI agentic ecosystems through the UX looking glass, through a UX lens. And the metaphor I feel like is appropriate because many of us working in these environments it still feels familiar, right, on the surface. However, when we really look at the products, the software, all of this stuff that AI and agentic software is moving and shaking and changing, the environments underneath, the things underneath are changing, right? So things are changing underneath our feet. The interfaces may look clean, right? They may look modern, but when you dig in and you try to get something done, or you try to, manage an app or manage an, an, an experience, is it really that delightful? I don't know. In some cases, it's really not. So as the agents and AI become more autonomous, more layered, and more complex, my goal here today is to help make that complexity a little bit more understandable, maybe um, maybe even easier to navigate, and maybe more human. So with that, okay. So now I can't see. Oh, can't see your hands, but normally I would say, give me a show of hands. So what I'd like to kind of gauge with the audience, so I stay on track and relevant to y'all, and don't waste your time because time is valuable, is what I'd like to know is, let's take a moment, a show of hands, or I'm sorry, text in the chat. Who feels like this moment with AI and UX feels a little strange? Like it feels a little bit like I can't see my reflection. Or so we've got a few folks popping in. Okay. Okay, good, good. So, um, okay, great. So this is going to be relevant. Thank you. So great. Thank you for popping in there on the chat. So now let's look at this carefully. Our UX disciplines and principles have not disappeared, right? Our discipline, our principles are still intact. They're still there's still a requirement deep down that we create delightful user experiences, that the human being comes in, gets what they want, does what they want, has a great time doing it, or even learns something, or whatever that workflow or experience is supposed to be. However, the environment around them is shifting dramatically. And these are for folks that maybe don't even know that AI is underneath the covers now. And what do we care about as UX practitioners? Well, we care about clarity, we care about trust, and we care about the human needs. But now we're working in systems where agency is distributed, right? Decision making is dynamic, and outcomes may emerge through interactions between people, models, tools, and agents. Show of hands in the audience who's had the opportunity to work with an agent directly. Okay, nice. And show of hands who's has an opportunity to work with Gen AI, sending an AI prompt. I'm assuming 100%, but I just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. Okay, now this is where UX becomes even more important, right? So UX helps us interpret the strange parts of the system, right? Those weird little pieces like, what is that? Why did that button do that? What is going on here? And what we want to do is translate that into experiences where people can actually understand and use. Because sometimes AI introduces, right, distrustful execution. So now, as we're moving and we're moving fast, right? So we're moving from tools to collaborators. In some cases, some organizations have the AI and the agent actually a team member. They're on the boards. They're given tasks in the pipeline. They're on the Kanban board. Now, we can't just say, okay, they're going to do their job because they really need a ride along. A lot of these agents that I've been working with are experienced. They're in like the toddler stage, I call it. They just got spun up. They're not like intelligent, experienced human beings that can do the job without any, management or supervision. However, what we're seeing in businesses is they're giving their agents agency, they're giving them autonomy, and this changes the design problem. We are no longer designing an interface or just, having a nice use case that we're automating. We're designing for participation, we're designing for delegation. There's multiple layers to the user experience now. It's not just, let's get to the developers, make sure they're doing the right user flow and the user architecture. Now we got to worry about the agents. What are they doing? And in a sense, the journey of the tools to the collaborators is also a journey of the isolated interactions. So these are the interactions that we don't really see, but they are going around. And that's when agent to human, human to multiple agents, the communication channels have become exponential. And just drop in the chat. I'm going to move to the next slide, but I'm curious to know if folks have their favorite tool. And what I mean by tool is it could be a design tool, it could be an AI tool, something that you use on a regular basis in and on your jobs every day or for fun. So it looks like Claude. Okay, I see a Claude. Okay, Claude, another Claude. Figma Make, yep, that's great. Yeah, those are popular. Awesome. Okay, familiar with those. Notebook LM, yeah. So, yeah, that has plugins though, right? The Notebook LM, that's awesome. I love Claude. GitLab Duo. Okay. Thank you. Notion AI. Yeah, that's great. That's like a Trello on steroids or something, I think. GitLab Duo. Very good. Okay. Thank you. So what makes an ecosystem agentic? This seems simple, but for clarity, we're going to talk about what makes an ecosystem agentic, right? That big new word, agentic. Well, agentic, eh, basically, they're defining what agentic means. All right. So I'm going to define it based on how it's defined today. However, keep in mind they're changing definitions. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. She's changed the chat settings so we can all chat together. Okay. When I think of agentic, I think of in the environments, decisions are being made constantly between agents if there's multiple agents in the system. And depending on the category of design or category of business associated with it, is where these agents are communicating. And in some cases, they have imagine a really giant moat around a castle. Well, imagine these agents are in that castle and there's a moat of security and they can't get through to the other agents, or they can't get through to other software tools or things like that. That's where these um, protocols that they've invented, specifically the MCP layer. So the MCP layer is basically allows the agents, AI, and even humans to cross over into other tools, third-party tools, systems, things like that to be able to get back and forth and communicate. I'm not going to go into too much of that layer. However, that is something that's becoming more important as agent environments are spun up. And that could be just a quick tip. That could be a point of reference for job opportunities in the future because the MCP layer that these businesses are creating are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and larger and more complex, and they need people to discern what's going on in there for the user because of the user experiences from tool to tool to tool. So I'm going to move back to, I just wanted to pivot on that because I know folks may want to be early in their career and they're looking for opportunities. There's an opportunity there. So this means that UX professionals have to ask not just what the user sees, but what's happening behind the scene, right? The handoffs. How are the handoffs occurring? And now we have new failure modes. We have new security problems to worry about. We even have accessibility issues to worry about that we haven't had to worry about from the front end. So what I'd like to know is I'm going to do a quick pulse check again. And what I want you to do now is think about a workflow in your own world. Okay, I want you to think about a workflow. Could be research, design, content, operations, support, anything along the US practitioner lanes. Okay, and as you're thinking about that, what we're going to do is we are going to think about how the UX role in your workflow. And the reason I want you to think about workflow now is because we're going to have an exercise in a little bit. And so I kind of give you all a heads up. So now this is where the UX role expands, is my assert. I'm asserting that we're going to expand the role. Even though we read the news and we see all these layoffs from large companies, I really believe that there's going to be so much opportunity for UX practitioners when all these companies realize, hey, wait a minute, we've got a glowing, giant, beautiful mess here, and our users are dropping like flies. We need UX practitioners back in. We need human beings. We need this skill now. We need that skill. We need this role. So I believe that we're helping if we help clarify the landscape, right? So in other words, there's an opportunity not only clarify the landscape, but also clarify our new role as the human-centered design to control the judgment layer of all this AI. And we can keep it usable, we can keep it ethical, and we can keep it humane, right? And put in some empathy. So it's like a strategic role, honestly. And it's one of the reasons why this is such an important moment in our field. So core tensions. So, one of the things I talked about that I said in the beginning is I would help give practical knowledge about how to recognize. So, a lot of times I'm guessing everyone's experienced this. And I call it it's called escalating drift. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'm just giving a tip as an additional core tension, including to what's on the slide. But escalating drift is how many of y'all have been using your AI, whether it's a prompt or a data, or you're asking for output. You say, I want you to do this. Now give me this. And then you do it and you go back and forth for a while. You're working, you're being productive, just like we naturally do, right? We're building a thing that we've never built before. And then all of a sudden, AI starts going off this way. And then it starts giving you this. And you're like, what the heck? It's like, oh, I didn't ask for that. I don't want that. And all of a sudden, you realize it's totally forgotten. Or maybe it goes down its own road and gives a hyper complexity. That's called escalating drift. And those are given signals long before they occur. Okay, the AI will actually give you signals long before you get that giant drift of pure errors. And some of the tensions that occur before the drift actually breaks things in your environment are trust. You know, the trust, when should you trust your output? If you're getting what you have, but it's not quite right, you see a signal and you say, hey, that's not quite right. Don't trust it. Go back. Go back to the AI, go back into your prompts, go backwards and say, hey, where are you? What are you doing? What happened? Why are you giving me this output? And that goes to the control, right? The judgment that we need to use. You stay in the loop. In my opinion, I think humans should stay in the loop at all costs because each gate could cause a drift. Each gate could cause a security breach. However, some of those things are under the covers, right? However, we have the ability to have another AI help us run alongside, almost like you know, a partner next to you. Who owns the outcome? That's very important. Like who's owning all this crazy outcome that sometimes we get? That's something that we can be a part of. We can bring that to the table. We can bring that up at the meetings or in the discussions. We can say, hey, who's actually accountable for this weird output that the AI just did? And the empathy, right? So I'm big on empathy. I'm doing a lot of research on empathy. And when I'm talking about empathy, I'm not talking about the classic sense of empathy of putting one's in one's shoes, because that's human to human. I'm talking about empathy in terms of emotional truth. When an AI is delivering information to a user or agentic software is delivering an experience to a user, where is the emotional truth? And I find that sometimes that gets lost and it's okay. And I don't think that it needs to get lost. I think we need to maintain our empathy. Uh, and what I mean by that again, for those listening and watching this as a replay is emotional truth, the restoration and preservation of empathy inside the output, inside the user experience, and of course, transparency. What must be visible? Um, and in my experiments here on my own agent. Her name is Jem. I have her run complete transparency, even though it's like reams and reams of information and output. I want to see her reasoning. You know, user asked me to do this, but I think I should do that. But now I think I'll do that instead. And I can see her going down these understandings and reasonings that I didn't tell her to do, but she's going down there and then she winds up back. And I know that particular moment, I could put a little signal or like a batch script that says, wait, if you get to that reasoning, let me know. Let's talk it out. It's almost like collaborating with a toddler, like I said. So very interesting. So a practical UX lens. Now this is leading up to the exercise. Remember, I've asked you to, pick out a workflow. So this is the simple lens that I talked about early in the looking glass lens. So how do we use this to evaluate an AI enabled experiences? Now, this is what I do, and I'm sharing this because I welcome feedback, and I hope this works for you, and it has worked for me. So first of all, I'm saying what is the human trying to do? What am I actually trying to do? What's my intent? My imagination says this is what I want. My intent is this. When I give it to the AI, I say, I want you to do this thing for me. Um, for example, let's say, I want you to create a fantastic looking website. Well, I could be that general. However, I get a lot more success quicker if I'm definitively defining exactly what do I want the AI to do. And then like I said about my agent, I ride along. What is the system doing? Where is the agency shifting, right? And in terms of my example, I see her shifting in her reasoning by saying, well, the user wants me to do this, but this would be better. Maybe I could do a little bit of this and I'll come back with that. I'm like, whoa. So where does the trust break? Well, it could break right there where she said, I want to do this thing instead. So I'll give her this half thing. And then maybe she'll be happy. I'm like, wait a minute. So, that's not going to work. So look at where does the trust break, and what must be visible or recoverable. So again, that goes back to all those facets I talked about: the trust, the empathy, the accuracy, the collaboration, of course, the drift, which is a signal for negative output. And you have to decide, where you're going to put yourself in there. And this might require some work, but you can actually help AI help itself by asking these questions. You can actually ask the questions directly to AI, and it'll tell you. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is set up for the exam. This is the example. So as we go into the exercise, I just want to make sure everyone has a great time doing the exercise. So this is just an example scenario. Here's an AI research assistant. Her goal is to synthesize a large body of research, right? The AI's role, she wants it to summarize, cluster, and surface patterns. Um, this can be incredibly helpful, right, to do this. But it also might introduce a risk. Risk might be involved. So what we need to do is not overtrust the output. Sometimes people overtrust the output. Sometimes they lose sight of where the conclusions come from, right? And they miss the uncertainty hidden behind the clean summaries. So that's very important. Sometimes AI will be uncertain about its output. However, behind the scenes, it says, well, I'm not really sure. So let me grab this, this, and this and put it there. And maybe that'll be good enough and they'll be happy. And that you have to be able to chunk that thing out and say, wait a minute, what did you just do? So what's visible, trustworthy, and reviewable is very important. And you have to understand what's behind the scenes. It takes more work, but there's more value there. And what's the kind of thinking that I want to that I want AI to understand. So you support the confidence, but without hiding the certainty. Okay, and now with that, we are going to have some fun. All right. So thank you, Michelle, so much for sharing the chat. So this will make it fun for everyone. So now I'm hoping that everyone has picked a workflow in your world, and I want to make this practical and simple. So let me know questions, things like that. I'll keep an eye in the chat. Michelle, please keep an eye in the chat for me as well. So one of the easiest ways to reduce the abstraction around human AI systems is to take one familiar workflow, right, and look at it through this lens. I call it the looking glass check. Okay. Now, in your workflow, I can't see I'm not doing a whiteboard or anything like that. Normally, I'd have a whiteboard and we'd all be writing. So, those of you that are participating, um, thank you so much. And, let's get some feedback so I can help guide the exercise and everyone gets the most out of the exercise. And for those of you watching the replay, feel free to walk the exercise as well. And you can contact me and I'll help you discern or summarize or pick the nuggets out that you need to learn from it. So, what is the human trying to do in your workflow? And those of you that want to share, please share in the chat. So let's see if we can do this. So what we're going to do is what kind of research is it? Is it research? Are you designing content? What are you trying to do? Okay. Now, for those of you actually walking through this with your Gen AI, feel free to drop the comments in so that we stay grounded as we walk through. So we're going to walk through each question. And then you want to ask, what is the system doing? Okay, you're trying to do this, or your client, or your manager, or your executives. What's the human trying to do, right? Then you have what's the system trying to do? Are they the same? Is the system trying to do exactly what you intended them to do, or is there a difference? And that's where UX practitioners shine because we can discern that, right? We can figure that out. This keeps us grounded in intention. So we need to name the AI role clearly. Are you wanting it to summarize? Do you want it to suggest something? Is it routing? Is it retrieving? Is it evaluating? What is it actually doing? So when you ask it to do something, be very clear about what you want it to give you back. Otherwise, it's going to give you, well, this and that, this and that, this and that, and you've got all this stuff, depending on the business environment. So now, once you've seen the differences, and hopefully there's a few of you to pick from, you can see could the trust or confusion, where's the trust and confusion? Where could it break down? And there should be signals in there for you to say, oh yeah, I didn't quite do this, or I I don't know why it did that. I need to look at it a little clearer. Okay. Now, what question 4, I'll give you a tip. For question 4, when you see trust or confusion breaking down or drift or the dreaded drift, I call it, I want you to ask the AI itself and say, "Hey, I'm noticing you drifting. Why?" Everyone try that. If they're seeing the drift, like if you used AI not long enough, you're going to see drift. And if you haven't, then contact me. I want to know why. It's perfect. Um, but anyway, ask it. You can ask AI itself. You say, "Hey, I'm seeing your truthful execution is not as truthful as it was. I'm seeing you drift. Tell me why you're drifting." And it may come back with, "Well, we've had this thread open since 2024, and I'm starting to not know where I'm going." Or it could be any reason, but the AIs will give you reasons for their drift. And in that case, we go to question 5, which is, what should UX make more visible? And that's exactly what you make more visible. You make those signals that AI is having to be more in tune with the user experience you're trying to create. Now, in the case of pure creation, where you're creating a design that is a static graphic, infographic, illustration, or something like that, you still get drift. But drift could be, instead of, I want you to now become an expert in something else. The drift in drawing, infographics, illustration, and media is often strange little characters, although it is getting better and better. It may be a color, the color that you wanted, the the hexadecimal color, instead of being the exact color that you wanted because you have to produce that for the client, may be slightly off because AI loves beige and teal. Anyway, it depends on the the illustration engine that you're using. So what I'd like you to do now is drop one friction point or insight in the chat that you've just discovered from this exercise for those that participated. This will help us move forward. Um, so I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Um, Michelle or Rajesh?
Yeah, I see Elizabeth just wrote something.
Oh, okay. I had to switch my set.
Are you able to
Okay,
see
thank
it?
you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Um, all right. Do we have any friction points or insights from the exercise that people would like to share? Okay, thank you, Gladys. The AI made a recommendation. What was evaluated? Yes. Okay. So that's a nugget, right? That's a nugget. That's a friction point. You can push back on the AI and say, "Can you elaborate what you mean by what was evaluated and how I might help you to improve the responses so it's more in line with my intent?" Something along those lines. And it's basically you're collaborating on a different level than you would with a human being, but it's still essentially collaboration. Okay, great. Thank you, Bree. Or a mobile phone with a camera and chromes. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm reading, but I want to see. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Olga. Friction point, absence of real-time documentation. Okay, that's really good. So again, these are great friction points. And I would encourage you to dig into these friction points, pain points, and as I stated earlier, collaborate on a level that increases your discernment of how you're helping the AI as if it's a toddler. Think about helping a baby walk across a room full of toys and food and things like that. It's going to be like, oh, I see that. Oh, I see that toy. I see that food. You have to get them to the other side. So you're going to be very carefully crafting your collaboration. All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay, if there aren't any more friction points, I'm going to, and please remember to save your questions for the end. Looking forward to discussing with folks. So thank you so much for participating in the exercise. And we are now, what can we do? Right? So we're winding down now. So what can we do? What we can do is we can dig in. We can not give up, right? We can map the ecosystem, not just a screen. So this is a powerful tool. Typically we have the screen, and this takes works, but it's worth it. And now she sees something in the mirror. You can see on the slide, she's starting to see something. She's not seeing herself yet, but she's seeing pieces. She's seeing something she can move around. She's seeing a chess game. And what that means is you can work with your developers, you can work with all the people. You may even have to work with more different types of roles of people in your job than you had before, because now, in order to be really effective and valuable in your UX practicing, you want to map the entire ecosystem. And that you're like, oh, I don't want to do that. But you don't have to map each architectural layer, but you have to know the agents are over here and they're talking about when the user clicks the payment button. It's all agentic. Over here, the agents are responsible for chat, and sometimes the chat, that's a whole nother topic. But anyway, what I mean by that is you mapping the ecosystem. You have the overall reaching interface. The user is diving in, basing on their use cases, the general pain points that the user might have. You dig into those. You go, what's happening in that ecosystem, not just on the screen. So that's a tip. Another thing that we can do is we can design trust deliberately. Just like we design accessibility and we ensure that the screens have alt text, we ensure the screen readers work, we ensure the audio works, we ensure all these wonderful things work for accessibility so everyone can use our software. I'm saying let's put trust in there as well. So the user has a sense of trust when they're done. So they're not like, oh, I did this thing. Oh, I don't know. I didn't really get back what maybe everything else was set correctly and defined and all the code worked, but you want them to have a high level of trust. And the handoffs, let's make the handoffs visible. Right now, I see a lot of handoffs, agent to agent, human to agent, that are just happening. There's no visibility on the handoffs, and the handoff is where drift happens. The handoff is where glitches happen and friction points. And also, let's keep humans meaningfully engaged. A lot of these companies are letting go of their greatest, most valuable resource, which is people, which is us. And I think they need to keep us in the loops. They need to keep us involved. They need to put us at the table. We need to be involved in the designing, the giving, the AI, everything. In fact, just train us. I'm a big proponent of keeping humans well inside AI development. And then let's bring back and bring forward a little bit more empathy, again, emotional trust and ethics upstream. Let's put it upstream, way upstream. And let's make it profitable, right? So that we lead with clarity, empathy, and intention. So thank you so much. This is the Q&A portion of the presentation. I really appreciate everyone here, and I'm happy to take questions, reflections, and discussion.
Thank you so much, Ali, for the wonderful presentation. And you took up into the Alice Wonderland through your theme. That's fantastic. So before getting into the questions,
Thank
I
you.
just wanted to uh, provide a couple of opportunities for people to learn through our conferences. We have in-person conference at Las Vegas later this month. Please check it out, uxpa2026.org. We still have few more tickets left. But if you're going to miss that conference, we are planning for an online one-day conference called UX Palooza. This is a second edition, which will be on September 25th, 2026. Please follow our social media channels on LinkedIn, and you will find out when we announce the registration. So with that, let's move to the questions.
Yes, so feel free everyone to put your questions either in the Q&A section or if you would like to ask them in person as well, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And I think we have our first question, Ali, for you from Olga. Are you able to see it?
Olga, her friction point. I see her friction point comment. That one?
Um,
No, I don't see
no.
it.
Oh, you don't see it? Okay, so let me read it. Ellie mentioned that she's able to question her agent's reasoning during a drift and intervene or flag those moments in real time. And I wonder whether an AI's post-mortem evaluation of its own reasoning can be trusted. And
Mm,
if not, does that even matter since the reasoning gets corrected and the outcome improved regardless?
that's a great question. Um, I love that question. Um, so yes and no. The answer is yes and no. The postmortem evaluation cannot be trusted if there was distrustful execution during the task. And even after you dig in and test and experiment and question the agent's reasoning during the execution, unless you have for lack of a better description, unless you have standards and quality assurance security protocols running alongside your agent's execution, I wouldn't trust the postmortem. And what I mean by that is if you are in a high liability situation, let's say a pharmaceutical company, they have high liability, right? Because they're producing something that could hurt someone if it's off, if the recipe is off or the workflow's off. And they're experimenting with AI, right? Because they can speed things up. However, they are required to have a certain level of government IEEE standards, security protocols along the side as the agents traverse their workflows. And in the end, their postmortems, they look at every little thing and say they look at the reasoning and they say, well, the AI said, well, maybe we could tweak the recipe of the inert ingredients for a moment and then put it back. And then at that point, the whole recipe is not compliant. So they can trust the output, but they can only trust it because then they know not to trust it. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. That's great. We have another question that just came in from Elizabeth, and she's
Okay.
asking, building trust takes time,
Mhm.
trial and error. In the TLDR world that moves fast, how might we build interactive systems that build trust without requiring users close read AI agent outputs?
Great question. Thank you. Yes. So there's a great book that I recommend for humans called The Speed of Trust. And it's right over there. The author, I see his name, but anyway, the name of the book is called The Speed of Trust. And it's about he tells a story of working for a company and going in as a stranger and getting trust as fast as possible because we know in business the faster you get trust, the more work you can get done with people because they just say okay, or they like your ideas, or that you can lean in and say, hey, we need da, and they trust that it's going to work out. So for AI, there is a semblance of trust up front because it sounds so intelligent as the output, but it's always going to be the same, meaning the relative trust will always be the same as it was in the beginning. The only way you can trust the output of an AI is if you chunk it down to tiny little steps where you can absolutely verify it each time it gives you an output. For example, mathematics, right? 4 plus 4 is 8. It gives you an 8. You say, yes, okay, you're right. 4 minus 4 is 0. Yes, it's 0. Wait a minute, that's not a 0, that's a letter O. Well, it looks like a 0, but it's an O. So the point here is, yes, it may look truthful, but it's not. It's the letter O, not the 0. So to answer your question, it's very difficult. It will take a lot of people. There's so much opportunity there, as far as I'm concerned, in career development with trust, ethical execution of AI, trustful execution, minimizing escalating drift. So you were saying, how might we build interactive systems? We can build interactive systems if we chunk it. If we chunk it down to, I want you to open this window, just like when people did user experience testing, when we had manual user experience testing and we had outputs that we had to verify. We verified by whether it was accurate or not, right? But we also verified if I could get the same thing done differently. So it is possible to create interactive systems that build trust, but I believe it has to be chunked. So you do the one thing, verify it absolutely, then do the next thing, verify it, then put it together, verify them together, like you're building a modular approach. So each module becomes independently verified and you can chunk them in wherever you want. So you build it once and then verify, and then chunk the other one in and verify. And do they have them so that the front end and the back end of that user experience can match up to the next one? Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, okay. Yeah, phased approach. I was thinking about trains. My son has model trains, and we can plug and play the different trains, but we need an engine and we need a caboose. I mean, you can run it without a caboose, but um, thank you. Okay.
Any other questions for Ellie? Don't be shy. You can raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can put it in the Q&A. Okay. So I think that's it, Ellie. I think you've
Okay.
done a fabulous job today. I really appreciate
Thank
you
you.
making the time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here today. If you have interest or questions, feel free to contact me. I've got my contact email on the screen, and I welcome any and all questions, collaboration. UXPA, let me just say, I love UXPA. I love the audience. I love the volunteers. I love the organization. I've spoken with UXPA for a couple of years, I think, and
Yes,
it,
yes, we
it,
love that.
thank you. And it continues to be extremely valuable resource. I encourage everyone become a member, participate, volunteer, get involved, network, whatever. It's a wonderful organization, and I'm looking forward to continue to be a part of it.
Yep, thank you so much for doing that. And
Thank
those
you.
who attended today, please say good things. Any things you have learned today on our LinkedIn channel, the UXPA LinkedIn channel. So let's continue the conversation online. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.